Yo, what up? This is Able1212, about to smash this paradigm. You ready?
All I know is the truth's elusive, so much, in fact, it's useless. If the thought's too surreal, even with proof they disapprove it. They paint you like you're Judas, make what you say seem foolish. The truth becomes conspiracy, the media remains ruthless.
At a time when news networks are pointing at each other, calling each other fake news, I'm stepping in at a critical moment where we really need to figure out who's telling the truth when delivering the information.
Real issues and real news is the real threat. And what poses the threat to the U.S. establishment?
What I'm about to show you is an epitome of report it first journalism.
Now, a Fox News alert and an explosion this morning at the SpaceX launch site in Cape Canaveral during what was supposed to be a routine test ahead of a weekend launch. Explosions continued for several minutes after the initial blast, and people in buildings miles away say they could feel the percussion.
New tonight, we have confirmed federal investigators are now looking into yesterday's, look at this, massive SpaceX explosion at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station.
This explosion right here shook buildings more than a mile away, sent black smoke hundreds of feet into the air. Channel 9's Mike Manzoni is live now at the Cape Force tonight. Mike, the FAA now says they're going to oversee this investigation.
Yeah, George, the feds say they sent several inspectors down here, but won't say how many. Right now, their job is to oversee the investigation that is just getting started. Thousands of you watched this video on the Eyewitness News Facebook page.
We now have video of the moment a SpaceX satellite exploded on the launch pad in Cape Canaveral. For Sentinel News Now, I'm Kayla O'Brien. You can see the fireball erupt, destroying an Amos 6 satellite that was set to launch on Saturday. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk tweeted that the explosion happened during a propellant fill operation. The communications satellite was planned to assist a Facebook effort to expand the internet in Africa. A spokesperson said the pad was clear of personnel and no one was injured. People as far away as Edgewater reported hearing a loud boom as early as 9:15 a.m. The Kennedy Space Center visitor complex remained open for business on Thursday. A NASA spokesperson said they are evaluating how the explosion may affect the next scheduled launch on September 8th.
And as we know today, that famous statistic, 6 corporations control 90% of what we see here and read in America, and it's true.
A day on the retail calendar that can be enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or a couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or maybe the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
Enjoyed from the desk or even the couch.
Enjoyed from a desk or the couch.
From a desk or the couch. From a desk or the couch.
From a desk or a couch.
From a desk or your couch. From the desk or the couch. From your desk or the couch.
From a desk or the couch.
From a desk or a couch.
From your desk or the couch.
From a desk or the couch.
From a desk or couch.
From a desk or the couch.
From a desk or even the couch.
From a desk or the couch.
Enjoy from a desk or a couch.
From a desk
or the couch.
From a desk or the couch. Or wherever you like, as long as you got internet.
Today, a spectacular SpaceX rocket explosion marked a huge failure for the private space industry. It was also a setback for Facebook's latest project. Here's Vanita Nair.
You saw it before you heard it. The explosion ripped through the upper part of the Falcon 9 rocket before it collapsed in flames on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral. The rocket was being fueled at the time and was due to launch in 2 days. It had intended to carry a $200 million satellite for Facebook that would have provided internet access to large parts of Africa. There were no injuries. Cause still unknown. More soon, tweeted Elon Musk, the billionaire owner of SpaceX, who also helped create Tesla Motors.
You was lied to by Mark Zuckerberg!
Now, the way that this story was covered was not truthful at all. There was even an independent investigation done on this story, and they didn't even come up with the real answer. And why? Why are they lying to everyone? Because they don't want this technology known. The information that I'm about to bring to you should stop these oil wars. Should is the key word. The problem is we need to awaken as a species of human beings and stop this division. So when it comes to fake news, I am not a journalist. I'm a truth dealer. All I do is collect evidence and I show facts. That's why I can't stand the word conspiracy. Because right when you say the word conspiracy, it's automatic fake. So look, that word will be banned. An investigation into the conspiracy, an investigation into blatant corruption, much different, much different. We need to start thinking a lot different, people. A lot different if we want to do anything productive. And remember, I'm about to show you why 60 plus organizations are lying to you. And whether or not if they're doing it purposely or they're doing it just out of ignorance, it still needs to be brought to the attention of America and the world, because the actual masses are tired of being lied to.
Dude, show me some evidence, and you're telling me the entire intelligence apparatus, this is all they could come up with was like a bunch of circumstantial misinformation?
Because if anyone looked into it, you would find what I did. I'm just a normal guy, right?
When it comes to independent journalism and when it comes to trying to have like a critical eye and trying to like inform the public about what's actually happening.
Like I said, report it first journalism needs to go. That is another focal point of Project Transistor. The info that I'm about to release and show you will change the world, and I really hope it changes the world for the better. If people dismiss this as a conspiracy rather than looking at it as technology, I'm going to be very, very disappointed, because there's gonna have to come a time where we accept facts for being facts and stop calling every little thing that doesn't fit the paradigm's systematic form a conspiracy. because to me, it's just an easy way out rather than dealing with the truth. Funny thing is, we're looking at it right here. Right there. See that? Right there. See that? There's your answer of what blew up the rocket. Alright? There's your answer of what blew up the rocket. Now this right here is this right here. Okay? That right there is this right here. Alright? And that is the answer of what blew up the rocket. Now what I did, watch, what we're going to do is we're going to show you the footage fast. And we're also going to show you the footage slow. I slowed it down. Now this is what I did. Like any other person that has a brain or that actually has this technology, I said maybe I'm the only one in the world that that thinks about politics and has the technology to do this. I don't know, but I am the only one in the world about to break this story. And I'm not trying to be first. Alright? I'm trying to show you the truth. That's it. That's it. Okay? Now what I'm about to show you is something that should alarm everyone, because if it was an F-35 that flew by and blew up the rocket, then I'm sure they would call it an attack. So what we have here is an attack, okay? And I'm gonna prove it was an attack. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw this, I know what I saw. In the first 2 seconds it flies by. Right when I saw this, I was like, what is that? I don't know. Because that's what a normal person would do. And then when I actually looked into it and I figured it out. Man, listen, I should be a journalist. I'm a rapper. And I'm not even a professional rapper. But I rap like a professional. Now, what blew that up flew by 3 times already. Okay? 3 times. This was found 17 times flying around. And what a lot of people don't even notice is when it came in and it blew it up, it flew around it real quick and flew up. See this? Flew around. See, that's not an explosion. See that? That's not an explosion. See this right here? This isn't an explosion. This is what just hit it flying away. See that? And then there it is. Look, it's flying so fast, it's in 2 frames. Okay? There it is. Okay? It flies then it goes around, and there it is. So it struck it, it's blowing up, it went around, and there it is, and it's about to fly up. Flying away, there it is, okay? That's not part of the explosion, okay? That is not part of the explosion.
It seems to show a bird flying past right before the explosion.
If you pay attention, you see the birds. There are birds, and what it is not a bird. Now what we're gonna do is show you in depth. Are you ready? See, there are birds. Now I hope you're ready. Here we go.
The Falcon 9 exploded on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral early last month, and so far, SpaceX knows there was a breach in the helium system that's used to pressurize the liquid oxygen tank, but that the cause is still unknown, with just last week CEO Elon Musk saying, quote, "We've eliminated all of the obvious possibilities for what occurred there, so what remains are the less probable answers." But all of this, it highlights fierce competition between SpaceX and ULA. It highlights fierce competition between SpaceX and ULA. It highlights fierce competition between SpaceX and ULA, which is a 2006 JV between Lockheed Martin and Boeing. Now, ULA essentially had a monopoly on government space contracts. ULA essentially had a monopoly on government space contracts. SpaceX sued for the right to compete. They won certification from regulators last year and have been snagging some NASA business.
So you're telling me that ULA, that's made up of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, had a monopoly over NASA space contracts until SpaceX sued and won in 2015 and have been snagging NASA business since?
Have been snagging some NASA business.
Wow.
So despite not knowing what caused the recent explosion, SpaceX is saying it still plans a Falcon 9 launch as soon as next month. But these sabotage reports certainly interesting and getting a lot of attention right now, Melissa. You automatically think, is this a distraction? What we know from past situations with explosions, the ULA chief executive saying this just a couple weeks ago, is that after an explosion like this, it can take up to 9 months, even a year, before we see rockets launched again. So very ambitious plans to get back in space soon.
Let's check out the beginning of this report. Sabotage speculation gathers around SpaceX explosion. October. Oh. Surely they should mention something about what we found, right?
So the S word, sabotage, has surfaced in the ongoing investigation into what caused a Falcon 9 rocket to explode. The Washington Post reporting SpaceX officials reportedly came across some suspicious-looking images in a video footage on a roof of a nearby building belonging to United Launch Alliance, or ULA. Now, according to that report, SpaceX tried to investigate, but ULA called in Air Force officials who inspected the roof and didn't find anything.
So SpaceX tried to investigate the ULA roof, but ULA called in Air Force officials which found nothing?
Now, according to that report, SpaceX tried to investigate, but ULA called in Air Force officials who inspected the roof and didn't find anything.
Wow.
In response to the report, SpaceX saying, quote, the accident investigation team.
The accident investigation team is SpaceX, the FAA, NASA, the Air Force, and experts.
The accident investigation team has an obligation to consider all possible causes of the anomaly, and we aren't commenting on any specific potential cause until the investigation is complete. And ULA has not responded to a request for comment.
So back in October, ULA didn't even comment, and SpaceX said that they wouldn't talk about any official findings until the investigation was over. Here's the investigation. It's over. It ended a few months ago. And what really gets me is this particular statistic. Investigators scoured more than 3,000 channels of video. Really? And still did not come to the conclusion of what I have here. I also wanted to point out that the object keeps on flying into the fire. It doesn't just keep flying out of the fire, it keeps flying back into the fire. Just wanted to point that out. And for those that are still thinking that it's a bird, in sighting number 14, you can tell clearly that it's not a bird.
It seems to show a bird flying past right before the explosion.
After 17 sightings, there should be no question that this is technology that is being used. And since I saw this 17 times in one sitting from one camera angle, I went looking for other camera angles. And got him. Now, out of all the news networks that covered this story, DIBC News was one of the only ones that actually had different footage other than the US launch report video footage. DIBC News actually had 3 videos that covered this story, and this being one of the videos, showing a different perspective from across the water, also being a different camera. This video was the only one out of the 3 that wasn't of significance, and in the next 2 that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to show you the full videos because they're both only a minute long. So now we have this in 3 videos, captured on 4 different cameras, totaling 20 times. How did they miss this so many times? I should have their job. The whole reason why I went looking for other footage was because I saw this 17 times. So I figured I'd have a shot by checking out other angles or other videos And here it is. I have it. As a viewer, would you agree I proved the FAA, NASA, the Air Force, and industry experts missed something? Now I want to know exactly what the accident investigation team was investigating.
So the S word, sabotage, has surfaced in the ongoing investigation into what caused a Falcon 9 rocket to explode. The Washington Post reporting SpaceX officials reportedly came across some suspicious-looking images in a video footage on a roof of a nearby building belonging to United Launch Alliance, or ULA. Now, according to that report, SpaceX tried to investigate, but ULA called in Air Force officials who inspected the roof and didn't find anything.
And here's the Washington Post article that she's referencing. Her report was on October 3rd. This article is dated September 30th. Now listen to this. The long-term running feud between Elon Musk's space company and its fierce competitor United Launch Alliance took a bizarre twist this month when a SpaceX employee visited its facilities at Cape Canaveral and asked for access to the roof of one of ULA's buildings. As part of the investigation, SpaceX officials had come across something suspicious they wanted to check out, according to 3 industry officials with knowledge of the episode. SpaceX had still images from video that appeared to show an odd shadow, then a white spot on the roof of a nearby building leased by ULA. The SpaceX representative explained to the ULA officials on site that it was trying to run down all possible leads in what was a cordial, non-accusatory encounter. And it goes on to say, the building, which had been used to refurbish rocket motors known as the SMARF, is just more than a mile away from the launch pad and has a clear line of sight to it. A representative from ULA ultimately denied the SpaceX employee access to the roof and instead called Air Force investigators, who inspected the roof and didn't find anything connecting it to the rocket explosion. The interaction between SpaceX and ULA has not been previously reported. It is the latest odd development in the mystery surrounding the explosion of SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on September 1st. Elon Musk has called the failure the most difficult and complex the company has ever had. About a week after the explosion, he pleaded with the public to turn in video or audio recordings of the blast and said that the company has not ruled out sabotage as a factor. Particularly trying to understand the quieter bang sound a few seconds before the fireball goes off, he wrote on Twitter, may come from rocket or something else. So the bang was approximately 5 seconds before the explosion. Since then, SpaceX, which is leading the investigation with help from the Air Force, NASA, and the Federal Aviation Administration, said it is narrowing down on the cause of the explosion, focusing on a breach in a second-stage helium system. And at a conference in Mexico this week, Musk said that finding out what went wrong is the company's absolute top priority. But he said what caused the explosion is still unknown. The Washington Post article goes on further to state, SpaceX and ULA are heated rivals that are competing over national security contracts that together are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. For nearly a decade, ULA had a monopoly on those contracts as the only launch provider certified by the Air Force. But in 2014, SpaceX sued the Air Force for the right to compete. Last year, the parties settled and SpaceX was finally granted its certification. As a result, ULA fired its chief executive and hired a new one who vowed to compete with SpaceX. This week, 10 Republican House members, many friendly to ULA, told NASA that SpaceX should not be leading the investigation and that authority should be turned over to the federal government. Now, I'm no expert in the field.
Are you some kind of an expert in the field?
No, I'm not, but if you look at the information right here, this shows motive. Not only by ULA, but also by the Air Force. And these 10 House members that are friendly to ULA saying that authority should be turned over to the federal government, what they're doing is asking the Air Force to investigate the Air Force building. So, essentially, one is investigating thyself of thy crimes. It doesn't make any sense. Of course they found nothing. And now I want to know who these House Republicans are that wanted the authority turned over, because clearly they have the motive to keep this quiet. And then I found another Washington Post article that exposed who was leading the pack of these House Republicans. But before we get to him, let's see what these guys were up to. A group of 10 Republican members of Congress wrote Thursday that they are increasingly concerned about SpaceX's ability to safely fly NASA astronauts and national security satellites after their company recently suffered its second rocket explosion in just over a year. In a letter to the Air Force, NASA, and the Federal Aviation Administration, the group said SpaceX should not be leading the investigation into its most recent failure, and that authority should be turned over to the federal government to ensure that proper investigative engineering rigor is applied. The letter continues to state, "These failures could have spelled disaster, even loss of life, had critical national security payloads or NASA crew been aboard those rockets," wrote the members, many of whom represent states where SpaceX's chief competitor, the United Launch Alliance, has a strong presence. Basically, these House members that are friendly to ULA are trying to discredit SpaceX and cut in on their business. Now, with that said, in the wake of the explosion, NASA has said it stands by SpaceX, and the Air Force has said it shouldn't affect the company's certification. SpaceX, which relies heavily on the federal government for revenue, meaning our tax dollars, holds lucrative contracts with NASA to fly cargo and eventually astronauts to the space station. It also holds a certification from the Air Force that allows it to compete for contracts to launch national security satellites against the United Launch Alliance, the Colorado-based joint venture of Lockheed Martin and Boeing. The members of Congress, led by U.S. Rep. Mike Coffman for Colorado, questioned whether the Air Force should reconsider SpaceX's certification, and they asked NASA whether it still plans to allow SpaceX to use the Falcon 9 for its cargo and crew missions. Since there was no loss of life or injury and no outside property was extensively damaged, federal regulations call for the launch providers to conduct the investigations with oversight from the FAA, NASA, and the Air Force are also helping with the investigation. NASA declined to comment on the matter. The Air Force said it would respond to the members of Congress directly. The FAA did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Now let's go over what we just learned and highlight the important parts to understand the information. Okay, so the explosion happens. And since there was no loss of life or injury and no outside property was extensively damaged, federal regulations call for the launch provider, which would be SpaceX, to conduct the investigations with oversight from the FAA, NASA, and the Air Force, who are helping with the investigation. So SpaceX is leading the investigation, and the FAA, NASA, and the Air Force are helping with it. Then you have these 10 Republicans from Congress that wrote a letter to the Air Force, NASA, and the FAA saying that SpaceX should not be leading the investigation. And the reason they give is this: to ensure that proper investigative engineering rigor is applied. And from what we've seen, there's no engineering rigor involved. So, who were these House Republicans? Well, we do know that they were led by U.S. Rep. Mike Coffman of Colorado. Now, what's interesting about him is that he's from Colorado, and come to find out, so's United Launch Alliance. They're based in Colorado. And also to have these other House members, where many of whom represent states where ULA has a strong presence, it's pretty clear to see that ULA had all their people in place ready to go to combat any investigation led by SpaceX when the time came. And remember, SpaceX, which is heavily dependent on funding from the government, that's our tax dollars. So how much money of the taxpayer went in to investigate this incident to come up with nothing? And then not only come up with nothing, but they ensured that the Air Force would respond to the members of Congress directly. So Mike, instead of actually ensuring that proper investigative engineering rigor is applied, what you really did was take control of the investigation, and whatever the Air Force did find, they told you and the other House members. So now not only do you have motive with ULA and the Air Force, but now you have these congressmen that are friendly with ULA and calling for the investigation not to be led by SpaceX. No wonder why Elon was asking for the public's help. Well, I hope he takes this video and he gives me a job. Or at least gives me a cut of what he paid the Air Force, the FAA, and NASA to not help him figure out what happened to his rocket. But you know who might know, Elon? That would be Congressman Coffman. Let's see what Congressman Coffman has been up to lately, shall we?
New video tonight showing a community upset with the person they elected. Congressman Mike Coffman's constituents say he promised them one-on-one time, but never delivered. Many of them have reached out to us, and our Denver 7 Sally Mamdou spoke with one Centennial woman who says her meeting didn't go as she hoped or planned.
Open the door! Upset constituents inside the Aurora Central Library.
People were visibly upset. I mean, people had taken time out of their day to come and speak with him.
Missy Berglund was among the people there hoping to speak to Congressman Mike Coffman at the scheduled community event.
I'm concerned that they're planning to repeal the Affordable Care Act without having a plan in place.
And it's for a reason dear and near to her heart.
They were able to find an infection in my dad that had been missed by his primary care doctor, and they were able to keep him here with us.
But instead of getting her one-on-one with Congressman Coffman as promised on his website, she met with him along with 3 other people.
And we'd get 5-minute sessions for each group of 4 people, but that everybody would get to be seen.
Missy used her cell phone camera to capture the meeting, but then Coffman told her this.
That's why we're not doing videos.
She says after she met with him, not too many people got the chance to sit down with Coffman.
He assured the last group of people he was meeting with out the back door, and then left out the back door himself without notifying the people inside that he was leaving, and there was still probably 100 people waiting to meet with him.
Tonight, Coffman issued this statement to us saying, quote, yesterday, activists angry about the election results and angry about the impending repeal of Obamacare came with the goal of making a show. That's their right, but the great majority of Americans want the Obamacare mess cleaned up. My resolve isn't the least bit shaken by these antics. The American people want Obamacare repealed and replaced. But Missy says there were no activists there.
This was local citizens. This wasn't an organized or planned event for a bunch of people to show up.
She's disappointed her first meeting with her representative ended like this.
I am an unaffiliated voter, and whether or not I voted for Mr. Coffman does not mean that he doesn't need to hear my positions or my views.
Open the door! In Aurora, Sally Mamdou, Denver 7.
So Elon, this is your best bet at finding out what happened to your rocket. And hopefully Mike doesn't try taking the back door and running out on you when you confront him on the issue. if you need anything, Elon, feel free to contact me. We're not going to get into too many more articles, but I do have one more I'd like to go over. But let's just recap what we already have gone over and check out the timeline. So September 1st is when the explosion happens. By September 30th, there's implications of sabotage, and the investigation starts, which is being led by SpaceX, and that's why these Congress want it turned over to the government. And then the investigation on sabotage starts getting headlines, and by October 4th, we're talking about a space battle on Capitol Hill. And then the next day, on October 5th, you have headlines saying that any idea of sabotage is pretty much a joke. That headline's a joke. And the space battle, look at this, dated November 17th, 2015. Elon Musk's rocket company, SpaceX, just became the only player in a government competition worth about $70 billion. But the idea of sabotage is a joke. This is why we need people to think for themselves. And if they can, look into things themselves. Because if they don't, this is what the media does. They're going to try to control the narrative. I mean, after what we've already seen through my research, all of these articles look ridiculous because clearly nobody looked into anything. And they all regurgitated the same story, from what seems to be a lot of it coming from the Washington Post. And in the next video, I'm going to expose every single media outlet that covered the story and show you the tactics that they use. And in this particular article, it's just interesting to see how they're quoting the Washington Post, but in the same sense, they're trying to discredit it as well by interviewing these ULA workers and making it seem crazy that there was sabotage involved. Let's check out the article. Despite its extreme unlikelihood, the worker said, the notion of sabotage has made for fascinating gossip among ULA staff. Could someone sneak a rifle up there? Could they disguise the noise? Could they hit the rocket? Would it do anything if they did hit it? Still, the source underscored the mundane nature of the theory's alleged origin and its improbability. SpaceX has a fault analysis tree, and sabotage is a branch of it that needs tying up, the worker clarified, further noting that, based on his impression, I don't see them or anyone here giving it any credence. And just so you know, the definition of credence is mental acceptance as true or real. So when he says, I don't see them or anyone here giving it any credence, they don't see anybody there accepting it as true or real. And that's the word on the street at the ULA office, according to their source. And ULA itself mostly confirmed his take in broad strokes. When provided with some of these unattributed comments, a ULA representative told Business Insider in an email that the company cooperated with the Air Force's 45th Space Wing and nothing associated with the SpaceX accident was found. In the meantime, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are sparring over the independence and rigor of SpaceX's internally led probe, which the FAA approved after SpaceX submitted its investigation plan. In one camp are 10 House Republicans who recently called for the FAA, NASA, and USAF to take over the investigation, despite current approval, oversight, and involvement by the federal agencies. Those congressmen received campaign donations from ULA, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin, and some have local interests in supporting ULA. But a larger bipartisan group of lawmakers, half of whom SpaceX has donated to in the most recent election cycle, and some of whom represent districts in which SpaceX conducts its business, have rebutted the call for a full government takeover of SpaceX's probe. Accidents are unfortunate events, and accident investigations should not be politicized. We encourage you to reject calls for your organization to abandon established, well-considered, and long-standing procedures, the latter group of lawmakers wrote. So this other group, that is friendly with SpaceX is calling for the investigation to remain being led by SpaceX. Now listen to this. The unsaid implication and speculation here, an industry source recently suggested, is this. It may be possible that someone could have gotten access to the roof of ULA's building, fired a bullet or other projectile from more than 5,300 feet in the distance, and somehow struck the Falcon 9 rocket's upper stage. Now I happen to find this interesting, that this author is quoting the Washington Post article, but he specifically keeps on pointing out the author of the Washington Post article, which is named Christian Davenport. And I feel like he's almost doing it in a way to try to discredit him, saying, oh, God, they're trying to say that Sabotage is involved. Well, according to Davenport, based on conversations with 3 industry officials, SpaceX reportedly had still images from video that appeared to show an odd shadow, then a white spot on the roof of a nearby building leased by ULA. The building, known as the SMARF, Solid Motor Assembly and Readiness Facility, is just more than a mile away from the launch pad and has a clear line of sight to it. Davenport notes the SpaceX investigation team was simply pursuing all possible leads. The Washington Post article goes on to say that while the interaction between SpaceX and ULA officials was cordial, the U.S. Air Force ultimately went up to the SMARF roof to check things out. But does anyone in the industry believe sabotage is a real possibility? Does anyone in the industry believe sabotage is a real possibility? You see these words right here? It's amazing. The idea that they try to put into the reader's head. Because I believe what I see. And I do believe it is a possibility. And Elon even said that finding out what went wrong is the company's absolute top priority. And he also said that the failure was the most difficult and complex the company has ever had. I mean, what was it again you guys were searching for? Let's see. As part of the investigation, SpaceX officials had come across something suspicious they wanted to check out. SpaceX had still images from video that appeared to show an odd shadow, then a white spot on the roof of a nearby building leased by ULA. And I kept noticing that these other articles were mentioning the white spot. And I just happened to come across a white spot. And in this video, if you notice, there is no ruptly there. Because what this video was the actual original footage that RT News, which would be Rupley, got their footage from. And the footage they got it from was 5 minutes and 40 seconds long, while the Rupley report was only 3 minutes. So I actually have extra footage. And in that extra footage before the blast, there was a white spot. When I looked into it, it turned out that it's a warning light. Now, the only thing that interested me about this white spot is what happened after the white spot. Now, did you see that? Right there. It disappears. So, whoever had this video edited it. And I don't know why, but even in the actual audio, you can hear the change in the audio. While the accident investigation team is focusing on the bang sound and the white spot, they missed the 17 times that we found in the footage that RT took from the US launch report. And they also missed more from the original footage, and let's see how many more times. And remember, this is before the explosion and before the footage that we've already seen from Rupley. So we have it 4 more times before. Let's see how many times we have it after. So we have the 4 times before, the 17, and now 13 more times, totaling 17 more times in the new footage. So now we have it a total of 34 times alone in the US launch report footage. And then we have it 3 more times on 3 different cameras, totaling 37 times.
It seems to show a bird flying past right before the explosion.
It's not a bird. Gary Franchi.
And liftoff.
Despite 25 successful launches from this site since 2010, SpaceX has suffered numerous setbacks. They have lost rockets trying to land them upright in the Atlantic Ocean. And in 2015, there was another explosion, this time after liftoff.
Now, the explosion in 2015, I wouldn't even bring up. But considering that this one here seems to be an attack, I was interested to see the footage from 2015. So I went and I got the original footage from NASA. And then looking at the original footage from NASA, you'll realize why the news took the section that they took from the original footage.
Eddie coming back shows vehicle on course, on track.
And so there you have it. Once again, a small object. And note that this is Cape Canaveral as well. And I just want to point out, in the broadcast, the section that the news used doesn't have this part in it. See, there's the object, it's gonna switch.
And in 2015, there was another explosion, this time after liftoff.
They know what they're doing when delivering the information. And my only question is, Does SpaceX know what's been happening to their rockets? Are they aware of another object? And I'm gonna go with yes, they are. Why are they not saying anything? I don't know. But even their footage. It's another camera angle. And there it is.
I don't anticipate this to impact any program that we have ongoing. We must find the cause of the failure. We must fix it. And obviously, we're going to get back to flight. We'll also, it's a reminder. It's not a great reminder, but it's a reminder nonetheless of how difficult this is. And we will pour even more effort into looking at every other possible source of issues in the future. We don't want to have dodged a bullet in the past and then only to get bitten again. So this doesn't change our plans. It's a hiccup. It's certainly a time to take to pause and make sure we're doing everything we need to do. But I don't anticipate any significant changes.
Now, what I've been noticing with SpaceX is that they are figuring out what caused the explosion. And they tend to focus on them focusing on figuring out what went wrong.
We must find the cause of the failure. We must fix it.
And you know why they do this? Because they're going to look unreliable if they don't. And I'm not going to lie that I bet whoever owns this craft that's destroying these rockets, they know that they're probably hoping like, haha, they're not going to have any idea what blew up their rocket. But they keep figuring out what went wrong and displaying it to the public. And in my opinion, since SpaceX can't come out and say what really blew up their rocket, I feel like by them saying that they're going to be launching like next month, that's the way they're trying to slap the face of whoever's behind this. And it seems that's the only defense that they've had until this video.
So despite not knowing what caused the recent explosion, SpaceX is saying it still plans a Falcon 9 launch as soon as next month. But these sabotage reports certainly interesting and getting a lot of attention right now. The ULA chief executive saying this just a couple weeks ago is that after an explosion like this, it can take up to 9 months, even a year, before we see rockets launched again. So very ambitious plans to get back in space soon.
And that's what they really want. They don't want SpaceX figuring out what blew up the rocket. They want them to ponder and ponder for months. And it might sound like I'm being harsh, but let's check out the history and the timeline of why this makes sense. So by now I'm sure that we understand that SpaceX sued the Air Force for rights to compete against ULA for Air Force contracts. But are you aware that the United States pays ULA nearly $1 billion a year just to maintain the ability to launch, regardless of whether or not they launch a single rocket? That's a lot of taxpayer money that can potentially go towards nothing. And don't forget, this is a company made up of another company that has made history with wasting taxpayer money. For the F-35 alone, the taxpayers paid $400 billion to be 7 years behind. And in order to understand ULA fully, it wouldn't be fair not to mention Jeff Bezos and his space program. And if you don't know who Jeff Bezos is, Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, the Washington Post, and Twitch as well.
There's a new space race underway. This time it's not between two countries, but between two companies. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin announced plans Monday for its new Glenn rocket. Not only will parts of it be reusable, it's also much bigger than Elon Musk and SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. Derek Pitts is the chief astronomer and planetarium director at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, and he joins me now. Good to see you, Derek.
Good evening, Vlad.
All right, so obviously New Glenn is named in honor of John Glenn, first American to orbit the Earth. What is the goal for Bezos with this new rocket?
Well, the goal for Bezos with this new rocket is really the same as with his other rockets, and that is he wants to be able to provide access to low Earth orbit much cheaper than it has been provided before, and reliably with a high degree of safety. This new rocket that he's talking about, New Glenn, actually will have much greater payload capability than any rocket he's worked with before, or rockets that have preceded this, even the SpaceX rockets.
All right, so there's probably a Freud joke that I could make here, but since the New Glenn is bigger than Falcon 9, does that mean that Jeff Bezos is ahead of Elon Musk in this space race?
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing to consider, because if you look at the track record that Jeff Bezos has, last year he launched his BE-3 rocket system on the New Shepard. He launched that 4 times repeatedly. So he had an initial launch in April, and then 4 other launches after that, repeating with the same rocket, all the way up to 330,000 feet. So he had 4 successful launches and vertical landings in 1 year. And that's really remarkable. And we haven't heard as much about that as we've heard about the SpaceX effort. Now, the SpaceX effort, of course, has been very exciting because they've been trying to land their spacecraft vertically on a barge out in the ocean, while Bezos has been doing all of this from West Texas. So I'd say they're at least neck and neck, if not Bezos is slightly ahead in a sense, because he's been able to do it right on land and with the same rocket over and over and over again.
All right, so regardless of where these billionaires are with developing their rockets, how far, give us a timeline, Derek, when can we expect to use these rockets to carry normal people, not astronauts, into space?
I think within the next 5 years, we're going to see humans on board these spacecraft in the initial test flights for a human venturing into space with these. Because, you know, one of the things that Bezos says that he wants to do is he wants to open low Earth orbit for regular people to be able to travel to space as tourists. So I believe his plans are to begin human test flights as early as 2018. And so that means that he'll be coming on with, you know, more flights available for the general public, certainly in the 2020s. Now, the same is true for SpaceX, except for SpaceX has a different agenda, if you can, in a way, and that is that what Elon Musk wants to do is he wants to provide reliable access to low Earth orbit using reusable rockets, but for more commercial purposes, like launching satellites and also for bringing astronauts and supplies to International Space Station. He's already been doing some of that, bringing supplies to International Space Station, and next he'll have to tackle the chore of being able to flight test his rockets for human use as well. But that's going to happen within the next 5 years as well.
And now there's something you have to understand about ULA in order to understand why they would even be competing with SpaceX in the first place. ULA uses Russian engines. And when there became increased tension with Russia a while back, Congress banned the use of Russian engines. And somewhere along the line, ULA put in a waiver allowing it to bypass congressional ban on the Russian-made engines. And in October, the Pentagon denied that waiver, leaving SpaceX to be the only entrant in a $70 billion rocket contest. And ULA said it desperately needs this waiver to bypass the ban in order to compete in the multi-billion-dollar national security launch market. Now, this article is from October 2015, and at that time, ULA had 4 of the Russian engines in its inventory that it could use for national security launches. This was said by a chief executive of ULA, Tori Bruno. He said ULA needs at least 14 to compete to launch national security payloads before it is able to use a new American-made engine it is developing with Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. Now, basically, ULA and Blue Origin are teaming up so that way ULA can have American-made engines, and that way they can compete. And what's funny is SpaceX cleared the way for Blue Origin, because here it says, to be clear, SpaceX is not seeking to be awarded any launch contracts. We are simply seeking the opportunity to compete, and not just for SpaceX, but for any qualified company. If we compete and we lose, that's okay too. So SpaceX isn't just opening up the market, but they're being very humble about it. And come June 2016, Colorado senators were behind ULA being able to use Russian rocket engines for 5 more years. The NDAA reauthorization gave ULA permission to use 18 of the RD-180 engines on its rockets through 2022. And the article notes that the much deeper pockets of Boeing and Lockheed Martin almost certainly helped win the day. And it even says right here that SpaceX gave John McCain $16,500 because he is the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And he backed down from his position, saying that the use of RD-180s would be funding Putin's top cronies. So John McCain's all about the Russian propaganda until he throws some money in his pocket. Amid the legal actions that SpaceX is going through, with the failures happening, that's just giving Coffman and the other politicians reasons to point the finger. Rocket-powered lobbying, raising issues about SpaceX, its launch failures and anomalies, and its relationship with the US government is not a first for Coffman. And Coffman is a member of the House Armed Services Strategic Forces Subcommittee, which oversees military spacecraft. Military spacecraft. Well, let's check out the timeline. Back when ULA had a monopoly, in October 2014, SpaceX started closing in on its certification for the Air Force to do military launches. May 2015 is when SpaceX earned its certification, and in June 2015, we have a rocket exploding. In April 2016, SpaceX wins the $82 million contract for the 2018 Falcon 9 launch of the GPS-3 satellite. And it'd be important to note that this bid was hundreds of millions of dollars less than ULA's typical pricing. That was in April, and we know what happened in September. Another rocket exploded. And if for some reason there's still a doubt with these companies being against SpaceX, back in 2013, when SpaceX was just days away from its 3rd and final certification flight, which the Air Force requires to compete with ULA for Pentagon contracts, the Air Force quietly inked a contract with ULA to fly its next 36 launches. And I mean, in a way, I feel bad for SpaceX, but I don't feel bad because they are lying. And if they aren't lying, then I guess they aren't as smart as they appear to be. Either way, they are still taking the heat for these explosions.
What I will say, and we have seen this with SpaceX even before we got this explosion, is much like you can make the argument Tesla or in some cases Solar City, there's been a lot of over-promising and under-delivering.
There's been a lot of over-promising and under-delivering.
And the news networks just keep repeating themselves about the explosions.
Elon Musk is considered really smart, right? And he's blowing up a rocket every week. Every time you turn on the TV, it's one of the smartest men on the planet ducking from rocket pieces as they rain down on his head. I'm not saying it should stop. I'm just saying we get stuff wrong a lot. And if we start geoengineering, we're gonna be a giant block of ice by Christmas time, all right?
And regardless whether you have these other camera angles or not, you do have the footage right in front of you. And those are some big screen TVs you have right behind you, Lee.
It's one of the smartest men on the planet ducking from rocket pieces.
Well, if Elon Musk is one of the smartest people on the planet, and this is one of the most difficult and complex problems that he's ever had, and I figured it out, what does that make me?
We get stuff wrong a lot.
You're right, the media gets things wrong a lot, and I'm gonna point that out right now. I'm gonna have a part 2 exposing every single media corporation that did this story and reported it wrong. I'm gonna have updates for these news networks as well. And I've already started to contact some of them and tell them that I have a story coming for them.
Not necessarily when you release the information to you either. No, not. What is it? You don't seem to be understanding what I'm saying to you. Just because you release some information is not going to be grounds to change it. Like, for what reason do we have to take your word?
This story is going to go into a lot of people's hands. And I just hope that it really works and we can get change started. But let me show you roughly of how I'm going to handle these news networks. Like Channel 9 in particular, they have video after video about the SpaceX explosion and the cause and what happened. Well, I hope that they update these videos with my video showing exactly what caused the explosion. But in this video that we have right here, they claim to know what caused the explosion. Let's take a listen.
I have some new information today on SpaceX, focusing in on a cause for that explosive pre-launch test earlier this month at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. That's when that Falcon 9 rocket and its satellite payload were both destroyed in this massive ball of flames. Now SpaceX says it appears there was a large breach in the cryogenic helium system of a second-stage liquid oxygen tank. Channel 9's Melanie Holt is live near Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Mel, SpaceX hopes to resume launches as soon as the exact cause of the anomaly is identified by the accident investigation team.
Now, what he just said is important. When the accident investigation team finds out the exact cause of the anomaly, then SpaceX can resume launches. And I think that plays a part into Mike Coffman and these House members pushing for the government to take over the investigation, so that way they can stop SpaceX from investigating the actual cause and slow it down as much as they can.
SpaceX hopes to resume launches as soon as the exact cause of the anomaly is identified by the accident investigation team.
And it's clear that SpaceX still has a lot of work to do before it's ready to launch again from Florida's Space Coast. But this evening, it appears to be closer to a fix.
And just like Lee and Greg, they show you the footage. They don't hide anything. They'll show you the footage and then tell you what happened and what went wrong. And you, the viewer, are not supposed to believe what you see.
3 weeks after this explosive pre-launch test that destroyed a Falcon 9 and its payload at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40, SpaceX says a preliminary review suggests a large breach in the cryogenic helium system of the second-stage liquid oxygen tank.
And then they're about to bring in Dale for some more convincing, if you're not already.
They're still not sure, evidently, why it happened, but at least they know what happened, which is a big step.
The accident investigation team, composed of SpaceX, the FAA, NASA, the U.S. Air Force, and industry experts, are currently scouring through approximately 3,000 channels of engineering data, along with video, audio, and imagery.
Seems that we've heard that somewhere before. And when it comes to Dale over here, Dale's just going to give you the most generic, simplified answer that you could possibly come up with.
They're pretty confident they know where to isolate down where the fault occurred. And now they're going to have to understand why so they can put in place the fixes.
And while we now know areas of Launch Complex 40 were damaged, SpaceX says the Falcon support building adjacent to the pad was unaffected. The pad's control systems are in relatively good condition, and the fuel farms are in working order. SpaceX's other facilities, from the payload processing facility at the Cape to the pad and hangar at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, are located several miles from Launch Complex 40 and were unaffected as well. Pending the results of the investigation, SpaceX hopes to return to flight as early as November.
You know, it's a shame because she's actually doing a good job in delivering the information. The problem is the information is useless, and once again, the actual cause for the explosion was not discussed. yet they showed you it over and over.
And work is underway at Pad 39A in preparation for that November time frame. We're live here near Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Melanie Holt, Channel 9, Eyewitness News.
And yet never a word about what actually happened. And that's the part that gets me, because they show you what blew up the rocket and they tell you a totally different story. And the same thing in this article right here. They did the exact same thing. They show you what it was, but they don't tell you. Right here, they're gonna say there was no apparent heat source. The engines were not on. Thanking NASA and the Air Force for their support and advice. A Twitter follower asked Musk about unverified claims on the internet that something hit the rocket. Any reality there? Right there. They show you it. And then when you scroll down, right underneath that one, they have another picture. And they show you it again. So not only once, they show you twice. We need to focus on the now, but we also need to focus on the things that have already been done. And that's why I want accountability in real time. Accountability in real time, because right now, we are overdue with getting the truth even looked at. And I'm just wondering, once I release the story, if these media organizations that covered it once and then leave it be, if you'll update your story. That's what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Simple thing. I just wondering if...
Depend on a number of different things. Who are you? Why would we change our reporting based on what you said? Are you some kind of an expert in the field?
Now this is where people are going to have to come to terms with, no, I'm not an expert. But let's look at what the experts did do. Elon Musk has called the failure the most difficult and complex the company has ever had. He pleaded with the public to turn in video or audio recordings of the blast and said that the company has not ruled out sabotage as a factor. So you have the expert in the field asking for non-experts for help. And then you have me, that found the answer to the problem. That isn't just a normal problem, it is the most difficult and complex problem that SpaceX has ever had. Now, the day of the explosion, the Washington Post had an article that they put out, written by Christian Davenport, and in the article, it has a video starring none other than Christian Davenport. Let's see what he has to say.
I'm Joel Achenbach with the Washington Post, here with my colleague Chris Davenport, and we're going to talk about this explosion this morning at Cape Canaveral of a SpaceX rocket that was supposed to launch in 2 days and send a Israeli satellite into orbit. And about 9 o'clock this morning, something catastrophic happened. We just now looked at the video of it. Chris, tell us what looks like happened.
Well, so what we know is Elon Musk tweeted a little while ago that said the explosion happened as the rocket was being fueled. And in the video we just saw, it looks like it started up at the upper stage, and then the whole thing just went.
Again, I'm no expert in the field, but pay attention to how many times he blinks. Now, unless he has a disorder or something, it seems he's really anxious. And he does this the entire time. And this video that the Washington Post has is almost 27 minutes long. That's a long time to talk about not what blew up the rocket.
It's a good point to make that there are two different pads at the Cape that SpaceX is operating. Pad 40 is on the Air Force side of the Cape.
And that's where today's explosion.
And that's where it happened today. How much does SpaceX pay for access to the military facilities it uses for launches? So I have no idea. That's the Air Force side.
Yeah.
They have two places there, on the Air Force side and the NASA side.
Now, according to that report, SpaceX tried to investigate, but ULA called in Air Force officials who inspected the roof and didn't find anything.
Because Dallas 5s are owned by United Launch Alliance, which is a partnership of Boeing and Lockheed, correct?
Yeah, and so that's some of the tension here, right? Because SpaceX is illustrative of new space, this sort of Silicon Valley mindset that we can do it better, faster, cheaper, more efficient, and sort of disrupt this industry. But on the other hand, you've got a lot of people say, well, space is so hard, it's so difficult, and there's so much at stake that even if it costs more, it's not the kind of thing you want the lowest bidder on. Right. You want that sort of tried and true launch provider. And so that's been ULA's argument all along, the saying, we've been around the block, we've been doing this. And while they try to adapt to SpaceX and become competitive, they can point to their long track record. I'm sure that's what you're going to see them continue to do.
What was the flaw during the launch? We talked about this earlier. They were loading liquid oxygen into the upper stage of the rocket, and the video we saw, which is quite dramatic, big fireball. So something went wrong in loading the propellant, right? So, and I feel bad for the people who work on these things so diligently, and to see the whole thing blow up, it's heartbreaking, and it's one of the occupational hazards of working in the space business. Things blow up, unfortunately.
But right now, they don't really have another choice. We rely on the Russians to fly our astronauts there. So I don't think they can abandon the program altogether.
So they just spent, the government, we just spent another $460 million or $480 million to buy another year's worth of seats on these Russian Soyuz rockets to send astronauts to the space station. Originally, the gap in launch capability was only supposed to last a few years. Right. Well, it's been since 2011 that we launched astronauts from the U.S. So this is 2016. It's going to be at least 2018, the explosion today. You can easily imagine that it could be a while before we were able to launch Americans on American rockets again. And certainly, Boeing may say we can still do it, but they've had their own delays into 2018. And so there's going to be a long gap in launch capability for the U.S.
Right. I really love this one right here, though.
Where does SpaceX go from here? I mean, obviously, figure out what went wrong and how to keep that from happening again.
Figure out what went wrong and how to keep that from happening again.
Thank you for calling the Washington Post. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. If you know the name of the person you are trying to reach, press 1. Director, who would you like to reach?
Christian Davenport.
Transferring to
Chris Davenport.
at extension. Wait while I transfer your call.
Hi, you've reached Chris Davenport at the Washington Post. Please leave a message or send me an email at washpost.com.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Hey, Chris Davenport. This is Able1212, and I'm just calling to let you know that I've paid attention to your extensive work on what's been going on with SpaceX and the space industry lately. And I just wanted to let you know that I got a nice little story coming for you. And I hope you really like it. I do. If you want to give me a call back to inquire more information, Would love to hear from you, pal. Take care. Bye-bye. And while exploring the truth, you come across these moments that just fit together so well. It's very synergetic. And this right here is one of those moments. Right here.
Possibilities for what occurred there, so what remains are the less probable answers. Elon Musk saying, quote, "We've eliminated all of the obvious possibilities for what occurred there, so what remains are the less probable answers."
Yes, the less probable ones, of course, which they never went with, by the way. And as of January 2nd, 2017, the anomaly updates, which you can go there right now, there's the link, not once does it mention the other anomaly that was in the video at least 34 times, and on the different cameras. Their anomaly is based on the moment that the anomaly that was flying through the air fired whatever it did and struck the rocket, and from the moment that it struck the rocket is the moment of their anomaly, the 93 milliseconds. That is what they are investigating. That is what they are explaining. Never once do they actually talk about the cause of the anomaly, which would be the other anomaly. But their cause of the anomaly isn't another anomaly. Maybe they don't know what the word anomaly means, so let's check it out. Something different, abnormal, peculiar, or not easily classified. Deviation from the common rule. Irregularity. Well, it sounds like the definition of anomaly fits our other anomaly as well. Funny, there's not one word about the other anomaly. Now, just like most mainstream media outlets and alternative media outlets, nobody even brought the anomaly up. But there are some that did.
Claiming that a mysterious UFO...
And that's where media tactics come in, and believing the illusion. For example, one Gary Franchi even brushed it off as it being a bird and said it was crazy.
It seems to show a bird flying past right before the explosion. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's kind of crazy.
So these are the things that I say are fake news. It's no respect for actually real journalism. Nobody's looking into anything, and it's quite disgusting to me.
Alien enthusiasts have concocted a novel idea that space alien lasers struck the ill-fated SpaceX rocket just before takeoff, and point to a video that seems to show a bird flying past right before the explosion.
A bird flying past.
Right before the explosion. Now, many more are questioning the safety and reliability of the private sector space program. Well, come on. How many rockets did NASA blow up, in their space program?
Well, come on. How many rockets did NASA blow up, in their space program?
You're gonna blow up a few rockets in this process, okay?
You're some kind of an expert in the field?
They write the explosion was chalked up to a faulty rocket engine that created a spark, causing the entire system to viciously explode, damaging the launch pad, claiming that a mysterious UFO shot a laser beam that caused the destruction. Okay, well, I don't know, but you've got, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's kind of crazy, to tell you the truth, but...
Laser beam that caused the destruction. Okay, well, I don't know, but you've got, yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's kind of crazy, to tell you the truth. But laser beam that caused the destruction. Okay, well, I don't know. But you've got, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's kind of crazy, to tell you the truth.
This image is not ours. Looks like it's a copyright from the Graphics King. You can see the watermark there. So I want to make sure we give them credit. USLaunchReport.com.
Now, what he's doing by giving them credit is actually discrediting them, because this UFO story, according to him, is crazy.
A copyright from the Graphics King. You can see the watermark there. So I want to make sure we give them credit. USLaunchReport.com.
So by him giving credit to the Graphics King, which has over 1 million views itself, and then the US Launch Report, which has the most views, it's almost like he's purposely pointing out the videos with the most views to discredit them. And you might be like, who cares what he says? To me, the reason why it matters is because when you look into Gary Franchi and you look at his past work, he's interviewed big internet people like Alex Jones. He's interviewed Jesse Ventura. He actually has a platform, and he prides himself on getting more views than Fox, ABC, NBC, CNN, Hillary Clinton, and the White House. And then he has a list where it shows he's getting millions of views. He's at the top of the list, and he's proud about it. And he has over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. And on his broadcast, he advertises his Patreon page. And if you go to his Patreon page, this guy gets almost $900 a month for this.
It seems to show a bird flying past right before the explosion.
I'm just saying, if you're going to be on Patreon, head over to my page. You'll get the truth. And I don't have any patrons, so I could use the help. And again, you have 500,000 people listening to the next news network. Head over to Scratching the Surface. I only have 200 subscribers, and you can get the truth there. That's my YouTube channel. And I just want to make clear that I'm not trying to discredit Gary Franchi over here. I'm trying to give him credit for his reporting.
But the Facebook lost $200 million on that one, though, right? What are your thoughts? Comment below. Subscribe for updates. If you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up and share this report. For the Next News Network, I'm Gary Franchi.
Now, long story short here is, now you see this? You see this? You have birds. I mean, you have your birds flying around here, which is great because they're perfect. See your birds down here? See the birds? See, if you pay attention, I have the yellow circle. See the birds? Now it's time for something special. Believing the illusion. This guy works hard on it. And we're not going to spend too much time on his page here. You can pause it and go back and read it if you want. We're just going to take the important parts out. But meet Scott Manley. Prior to my time at Armagh, I gained a degree in astronomy and physics from the University of Glasgow and a master's degree in IT, which is information technology, and computational physics, again from Glasgow. Now, he did a video explaining why the SpaceX rocket exploded, and he has a huge fan base, almost 600,000 subscribers. And this is the information that he's telling his subscribers. This is January 2nd. This is the same day that the final report was done with the SpaceX investigation. And he says, the reasons for this have been open on some wild speculation, but in the end, it's nothing to do with UFOs. It's all to do with COPVs, locks, and socks. So right off the bat, this guy's saying It has nothing to do with UFOs. And I just want to point out that this is a tactic that they seem to be using because Scott isn't the only one that's doing this. There's another video that has quite a bit of views, and it's titled Detailed Analysis of SpaceX Rocket Explosion. And that's where I got this handy little graphic from to show you what these guys are focusing on. Now getting back to Scott Manley and his 200,000 views, not only did he say that it has nothing to do with UFOs, but he pinned a message. And listen to this pinned message. Dude, I'm an aerospace engineer doing a PhD on liquid oxygen boiling, and I'm amazed at your video. So detailed, comprehensive, seemingly accurate, and under 8 minutes. Wow. Great job, man. I was really curious about what happened there, and I've learned a few things. You did, however, mention liquid helium at 453, but I totally forgive you for that. Keep up the good work. More videos like this, please. And maybe less beer and Kerbal? Cheers! 300 people liked that message. That message is backing up what is untrue. Even more. I mean, if you don't see what I see here, then it's time you guys need to start looking at the world a lot differently. Especially since now we know what we know. Because if this guy is really as smart as he's claiming that he is, and he has these degrees, and he has a master's, and he's knowledgeable about this stuff, and this is his field of his understanding, how can he just sit there and blatantly say that it has nothing to do with UFOs? He's either really unintelligent and not smart, or he's really smart and he's lying to you. And he's gonna try and use the fact that he understands this field more than you do. But use your eyes. They're lying. And I think they know they're lying. In my opinion, the intelligence apparatus has not gotten more intelligent over the years. It's gotten more deceptive. And make sure to pay attention for part 2 that I'll be releasing soon after this, exposing the 60+ media outlets that cover the story all the same way. And I'm gonna break down certain ways, like how I did in this video, the tactics that they use. And I'll also be able to show you updates to whatever stations did update their story with this new information.
Do you have a headline or anything at least?
Lockheed Martin destroys SpaceX rocket? Yeah, I do.
So what about it?
Now look, I'm not trying to point any fingers, and I'm not trying to blame the wrong people. I'm just trying to get accountability. And in my opinion, the people that the fingers are being pointed at, which would be ULA/Lockheed Martin and Boeing and the Air Force, they are quite capable of having this craft. And in my opinion, ULA is the #1 suspect if I was going to be running an investigation. Because looking at Lockheed Martin's track record alone, when you understand what they're worth, and then when you understand what products they make, essentially any of these on the list could be used for the technology that they're using. But we'll just go down the list of the ones that wouldn't only be jet related. You have air traffic control systems, precision guided munitions, directed energy weapons, combat systems, radar technologies, electronic warfare systems, multi-function sensor systems, and spacecraft. I wonder if that's the same spacecraft that Mike Coffman oversees. And the only other interesting product on their list is the ICT solutions. When you go on the website and you actually see what it is, at ICT, we focus on developing innovative solutions that enable you to keep your people, property, operations, and information safe. Oh, how perfect of a company to have at your disposal when you're dealing with something of this nature. And let's not forget about ULA's connections with Congress and Mike Coffman. And if you go to Mike Coffman's website, you can actually write to him. So that's what I decided to do. And this is what I said. Hello. I am contacting you, Congressman Coffman, on behalf of the SpaceX explosion back on September 1st, 2016. I was wondering what your position and reasoning was for requesting SpaceX to not lead the investigation into the explosion. I'm aware of the lobbying done by ULA and also aware that ULA is based in Colorado. With that said, SpaceX and ULA are top competitors in a $70 billion battle on Capitol Hill. So if you are on the ULA side of this battle, then I am wondering what your reasoning was for your decision. I know why I'm asking you. I'm just wondering if you're going to tell me the truth. Thanks for your time. Able1212. And I'm sending messages everywhere, wherever I can. Anybody that can see this information, I'm gonna put it in front of them. I did a Yelp review of SpaceX. This is Able1212, and I have information to help SpaceX in this battle that they have been dealing with for years now. The information will be coming soon. Now knowing what I do, I know SpaceX has to know as well, so my review isn't really a positive one. They lied to the public about these explosions of their rockets. Well, it's time to set the record straight. Project Transistor. And whatever Mark Zuckerberg did say in his public posts, I ended up getting the opportunity to tell Facebook some feedback. And I told them Mark Zuckerberg should have told the truth about what happened to his satellite on that SpaceX rocket. Now I do want to make clear that even I have questions. I have questions that I would like to know if someone else could help me with, because I'm not sure, but in the beginning of this video, in the first 55 seconds, I pointed out the anomaly 4 times. When I looked at it again, I think that I might have missed a couple times, but I'm not sure because it might be a bird, but it might not be, and I would like to have someone else's opinion. But what I did see is that there also might be another anomaly. So I'm saying that there might be 2. And I would like to have the first 55 seconds really analyzed. Right there, you would see 2. Or like right there, you see 2. And I would just like to have this analyzed more than I've done. And let's answer some questions. And you can follow me on all of these platforms. On Twitter, it's Ancient Minds 111. On YouTube and SoundCloud, you have Scratching the Surface. And you also have Able1212 on all the other platforms as well, including SoundCloud and YouTube. The only platform that I am not on is Twitch, because I'm banned from it, and we will get into that story one day. And if you want to support me, the best ways to support me is going to this link right here on PayPal. And the other best way to support me would be a Patreon, if you're interested in that, which at some of the tiers, I'll have these news releases and music videos released early on whatever tier that would be. So we have a lot coming and a lot more information coming, especially in this report. Now, I'm sure you might have heard the rising tensions between North Korea and South Korea, and I'm not sure if anyone has been aware of a flyby that the US did with South Korea a few months ago. But let's just read this real quick before we watch that video. The extraordinary warning comes amid massive US military buildup near the Korean peninsula, with the carrier strike group USS Carl Vinson heading towards the region, while US President Donald Trump is threatening to take care of the North Korean problem. Pyongyang says it is ready to repel any military action.
The United States Air Force flies 2 supersonic bombers low over South Korea in a show of force, just days after neighbouring North Korea carried out its largest nuclear test to date. The B-1 Lancer strategic bombers were accompanied by a fleet of US and South Korean fighter jets as the two countries attempt to send a message to the North.
Today's demonstration provides just one example of the full range of military capabilities available to this alliance. It is a deep arsenal, and it is a part of our efforts to strengthen and extend our extended deterrence.
The South Korean military went even further, warning that if North Korea conducts a military provocation, it'll be met with a firm response that, they said, would shake the very foundation of the regime. China's foreign ministry today called for restraint, urging all relevant parties to remain rational and not to provoke each other. She said a vicious cycle of rising tensions and mutual provocations would not be in anyone's interest. The US, though, insists North Korea has demonstrated blatant and reckless disregard to its international obligations and has called for a swift and strong response by the United Nations. Meanwhile, footage of a mass rally celebrating the nuclear test has been aired on North Korean state-run television. Thousands of citizens, soldiers and high-ranking government officials attended, although the isolated state's leader, Kim Jong-un, was not seen.
Here it is again. Did you see that? Check it out one more time. We're gonna slow it down. There it is. See that? And look how much more faster it is than these jets. I think we might have it a 38th time. Do we have it a 38th time? Four videos captured on 5 different cameras, totaling 38 times? Okay, well, first off, I want to talk about this fake news that's going on ever since after the elections. I'm gonna let you also know that I'm not a Trump fan, I'm not an Obama fan. They can all go to hell, okay? I stand against the system until it's fixed. And if it doesn't get fixed, the new system, all right? And that's what Project Transistor is. Project Transistor is a different idea. It's a different way of thinking. Because all it is a choice to change the way we think for a better world. but yet we stay in ignorance because A, of our media that feeds us the ignorance, and then also you have our leaders that are all bought by corporations that don't have the best interest for the people. What Project Transistor is, it's there to work for the people. I want accountability in real time. I'm tired of paperwork. I want to talk to someone. And if I can't talk to someone that's going to actually help me, then I'm just going to keep exposing the craziest things that will blow your mind.